For 13 years, Daniel Reed believed he had built the kind of life most men quietly hope for. 2 healthy kids, a home in a safe neighborhood, a wife he trusted. Even the golden retriever sleeping at the foot of their bed felt like a symbol of how far they'd come. He wasn't rich, but he was steady, reliable, the kind of man people at work described as solid. And he thought his marriage was the same way: solid, unshakable, safe. That illusion shattered the day Lily laughed, brushed his worries aside, and told him he was just paranoid about her photographer friend. He didn't yell. He didn't accuse. He simply let the word lodge somewhere deep inside him, like a splinter he couldn't pull out. And now, here he was, sitting across from her, in the soft glow of their favorite restaurant, watching her smile like nothing was wrong. Her laugh came out too light, too bright, almost rehearsed. Daniel didn't say a word. He didn't need to, because the truth was already walking through the door behind her. Rachel Cole, 8 months pregnant, exhausted, heartbroken, betrayed, stood in the entrance, scanning the room with the kind of look a woman only has when she's been lied to for far too long. And in that moment, Daniel finally understood something simple and brutal. He had never been paranoid. The woman across from him, his wife, the one who told him he was imagining it, she had been living a double life. And when Rachel walked toward their table, carrying the child of the man Lily swore was just a friend, the last threads of that double life began to snap. But here's the part people never expect: Daniel didn't scream. He didn't beg. He didn't crumble. He had already made his decision, before everything fell apart. Daniel's life looked ordinary in the best possible way. He grilled in the backyard on Sundays, while his kids chased the dog around the lawn. The smell of charcoal and cut grass felt like home. The sun set behind rows of tidy houses. And Daniel always thought, yeah, this is good. This is enough. Lily used to think so too. Or at least, that's what she said. She was a freelance social media consultant, stylish, put together, always with a phone in her hand and a new project on the horizon. Recently, she'd started telling him she was busier than ever. New clients, new campaigns, new opportunities. Daniel didn't question it. Why would he? They'd been together since their 20s. They'd survived the lean years, the toddler years, the job changes, and the mortgage stress. You don't get through all that without believing in each other. He paid the bills. She managed the household noise. It wasn't glamorous, but it worked, and Daniel wasn't the type to snoop. He never once felt the need to check her phone or press her about where she'd been. He trusted her, completely, but the cracks started small, so small he almost missed them. Lily began going out more. Branding events, she said. Late client meetings. Networking nights. Every excuse sounded reasonable on its own. But put together, they didn't form a picture Daniel recognized. Her phone, once left casually on the counter, now stayed face down everywhere she went. Notifications vanished. She changed her password for security. And Daniel told himself it wasn't his business. Couples need space. Independence is healthy. He repeated these lines the way a man repeats something he wants to believe. And for a while, he did believe it. He shrugged off the late nights, shrugged off the new clothes, shrugged off the sudden bursts of energy followed by long, distant silence. We're adults, he told himself. She's allowed to have a life, but somewhere underneath that calm exterior, a small, quiet discomfort began to grow. Not loud enough to be anger, not sharp enough to be suspicion, just a feeling faint, unwelcome, persistent, that something in their perfectly ordinary life was shifting. And Daniel, the man who trusted too deeply and questioned too little, had no idea that this tiny crack was the beginning of everything that would come crashing down. The shift happened on a Saturday in early June. At a coworker's wedding, one of those bright, noisy events where the music is loud, the drinks flow freely, and everyone pretends the world is a happier place than it really is. Daniel didn't arrive expecting anything unusual. He thought it would be an ordinary evening, polite conversations, a few slow dances, and maybe a little laughter on the drive home. Nothing more. But Lily came dressed like she was stepping into someone else's life. A new dress he'd never seen before. Perfume she used to save for anniversaries. Hair done with extra care. Makeup just a little heavier than her usual style. Daniel couldn't quite place the feeling. But something about her effort didn't feel like it was meant for him. The photographer that night was Ethan Cole, mid-30s. Confident smile. The kind of man who seemed to slide into any room and instantly charm whoever looked his way. He floated from guest to guest, snapping photos, cracking jokes, smiling with ease. People liked him instantly. Daniel noticed Lily liked him instantly too. At first, it was small things. Lily, laughing a bit too loudly at something Ethan said, a joke Daniel hadn't heard, but doubted was that funny. Then came the eye contact. Not accidental. Not friendly. Lingering. A kind of locked-in attention that felt wrong in a way Daniel couldn't explain yet. He watched Lily's hand brush Ethan's arm. And instead of a casual touch, the moment stretched 1 second too long. 2 seconds too familiar. Daniel told himself not to overthink it. Weddings make people looser. Happier. Drinks make people friendlier. He didn't want to be the jealous husband watching shadows where nothing existed, but the truth doesn't need permission to be seen. Later in the evening, while Daniel stepped away to get drinks at the bar, he caught something in the corner of his eye, Lily and Ethan, slipping quietly out a side door that led toward the back hallway. No announcement. No explanation. Just two people moving in sync like they'd done it before. He waited. 5 minutes. 10. 15. At around the 20-minute mark, Lily came back into the reception hall. Her hair was slightly out of place, as if she'd run her fingers through it too quickly. The corner of her lipstick was smudged. Her cheeks were flushed. And her breathing didn't match the rhythm of the music or the dance floor. Daniel tried to keep his voice steady when he asked where she'd gone. She didn't blink. Didn't falter. She just gave him a light, almost dismissive laugh and said, "Relax. I was helping him find a charging station. You're being paranoid." Paranoid. The word hit harder than she realized. It didn't just dismiss his question, it dismissed him. His instinct, his intelligence, his place in their marriage, he let it go in the moment. But something in him shifted. Something quiet. Something deep. A line had been crossed. Even if he couldn't yet name how or why. And over the next few weeks, that word paranoid would become Lily's shield. Her favorite weapon. She would use it again and again. Every time he got close to the truth, she was terrified he might finally see, a truth that had already started unraveling the life he thought he knew. After the wedding, Daniel didn't accuse Lily of anything. He didn't demand answers. He didn't start fights or bring up what he saw. That wasn't who he was. And honestly, he wasn't even sure what he'd seen or what he thought he'd seen. But something had shifted inside him. Not anger. Not jealousy. Just attention. For the first time in 13 years, Daniel started watching his own wife, and it didn't take long for the signs to appear. Lily's phone. Once left anywhere. Kitchen counter. Nightstand. A passenger seat was now always with her. Always face down. Always on silent. When it buzzed, she'd glance at it with a quick flick of her eyes and then turn the screen away from him, laughing like it was nothing. At first, Daniel chalked it up to work. Clients messaging late. Social media, schedules, digital campaigns. It made sense, but then came the lingerie receipt. He found it while taking out her purse from the car so the kids wouldn't spill ice cream on it. A tiny slip of paper from a boutique he didn't recognize. Expensive. Delicate. The kind of thing Lily hadn't worn in years. That night, when she undressed beside him, she wore her usual cotton pajamas. So who was the new lingerie for? Daniel didn't ask. He simply stored the detail away. The way a man stores small pieces of truth he isn't ready to face yet. The late-night meetings grew more frequent. Lily came home freshly showered. Hair damp. Makeup washed off. She'd say she'd spilled food at the client dinner, or that the restaurant was smoky, or that she wanted to freshen up. Daniel nodded each time. But in the back of his mind, something steady. Something quiet. Something undeniably male whispered, "This doesn't add up." The shift from unease to certainty, the moment suspicion became evidence, came on a Sunday afternoon while doing taxes. Daniel sat at the dining room table. Receipts spread out. Kids playing in the backyard. Lily was at another brand strategy meeting. He logged into their joint account to categorize expenses. And that's when he saw it. Transfers, $200. Every month. Same date. Same amount. Each labeled studio retainer or consulting bonus, except Lily didn't pay for studio space. And she didn't receive bonus payments tied to client work. They'd talked about that for years. He clicked deeper into the transaction history. The transfers went back 6 months. He felt a cold wave roll through him. Slow. Heavy. Real. Daniel didn't call her. Didn't text her. Didn't confront her when she came home later. Smelling faintly of citrus shampoo, and wearing the same excuse she'd used the last 3 times. We ended up talking longer than I expected. Instead, he quietly downloaded the bank statements. Screenshotted every transfer. Saved each file into a new folder on his laptop, one only he knew existed. He wasn't going to fight with feelings anymore. Feelings lie. Numbers don't. On Monday, during lunch at work, he approached a colleague who'd gone through a brutal divorce 2 years earlier. A man who didn't speak much about the past unless someone asked him directly. Daniel asked, and the colleague gave him a name, Marcus Hale, a private investigator known for being discreet, thorough, and unemotional. The kind of man who found the truth, whether you were ready for it or not. Daniel called that afternoon. Marcus didn't ask many questions, just enough to understand the situation. They met 2 days later in a small office above a locksmith shop. Marcus took notes. Reviewed the screenshots. Nodded once. And said he'd start immediately. The next 3 weeks crawled by. Lily's behavior only made the silence heavier. More client meetings. More freshly washed hair. More perfume Daniel didn't recognize. More careful attention to her appearance on days she claimed would be low-key work days. Daniel didn't comment. He didn't change his routine. He didn't tip his hand. He simply waited for the truth. When Marcus finally called, his voice was as flat as always. "I have something for you. You should come in." Daniel drove to the office with a feeling he couldn't describe, half dread, half relief. A strange calm settled over him. The kind men carry when they already know the answer, but still need to hear it said aloud. Marcus slid a manila folder across the desk. Inside were photographs. Dozens of them. Lily entering a downtown apartment building on nights she said she was meeting clients. Ethan's car parked in the same spot every time. Time-stamped images of Ethan leaving the building 2 hours before her. Then Lily slipping out later. Time. Looking down. Hood up. Moving quickly. 6 months of documentation. Every movement logged. Every lie silently recorded. Every piece fitting together like a puzzle Daniel never wanted to solve. But the truth wasn't finished with him yet. At the bottom of the folder was a printed profile. Ethan Cole, married, and his wife Rachel was 7.5 months pregnant. Daniel stared at the page, feeling the weight of it settle into him. Not just betrayal, not just infidelity, but a full, secret life. One that didn't belong to him, and the cliffhanger. The part that made his pulse finally jump was simple. Daniel thought he was the only one being lied to. He was wrong. There was another person living a quiet, unsuspecting life built on deceit. A woman carrying a child whose father was sharing a bed that didn't belong to him, and she had no idea. Not yet. But she would. Soon. Not yet. He needed to talk to the only other person who knew nothing, and deserved to know everything, so he sent an email. Short. Measured. Respectful. At the bottom of the folder was a printed profile. She responded within 40 minutes, and Daniel's world and hers were about to collide in a way none of them could take back. After reading the last page of the investigator's dossier, Daniel sat alone in his car for nearly an hour. Not crying. Not shaking. Just breathing slow. Controlled. Deliberate. The truth had landed. Heavy and undeniable. But instead of rage, what washed over him was something quieter. Something steadier. Rachel Cole walked in slowly. One hand beneath her belly. The other clutching her purse strap like she needed it to stay upright. Late 20s. Maybe early 30s. Face tired from nights alone. A wedding ring she still wore with pride. And eyes soft. Hopeful eyes that clearly trusted the man she married. Daniel wished he didn't have to be the one to break that trust open. The next afternoon, they met at a small cafe tucked between a florist and a used bookstore. The kind of place where people whisper, without realizing they're whispering. Hello, Rachel. My name is Daniel Reed. I believe our spouses might know each other more than we realize. If you're open to it, I think we should talk. She sat across from him, ordered nothing, and asked gently, "What is this about?" He told her about the bank transfers, 6 months of money leaving his household for something Lily never mentioned. He told her about the nights Lily claimed she was, with clients, while the investigator photographed her entering the same apartment Ethan visited hours before. He laid out the timeline. The receipts. The patterns. The evidence no one could argue with. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "I wouldn't show this to you if there was any other way." He didn't ease into it with small talk. He didn't circle around the truth. He spoke in the same calm, steady voice he'd used when signing the mortgage papers or explaining homework to his kids. Rachel opened the folder, and her world broke in slow motion. She pulled one hand to her stomach. Protectively. Instinctively. As if shielding the life inside her from the betrayal outside. Her voice cracked when she whispered, "He told me those nights were for newborn photography workshops." Daniel didn't interrupt. Didn't comfort her. Didn't touch her arm. He simply sat there. Steady. Letting her absorb the truth at her own pace. When she finally looked up, tears clinging to her lashes, there was only one thing left to say. "They're lying to us." She murmured, "Yes." Daniel replied, "They are. But our kids didn't ask for this. And your baby. She deserves honesty. Not secrets. Together." They agreed on a plan not out of vengeance, but out of necessity. Daniel would invite Lily to their favorite restaurant, the one filled with old memories. He would confront her with the truth she kept dodging. Rachel would walk in afterward, not to cause a scene, but to be seen so Lily could no longer deny what she'd done. Daniel didn't want drama. He didn't want chaos. He wanted clarity, for himself, for his children, and for the woman carrying the other man's child who deserved the truth just as much as he did. Daniel waited 3 days before making the invitation. Not because he needed time to think, he already knew exactly what he was going to do, but because he wanted Lily to feel the calm before the storm she didn't know was coming. One evening, while she folded laundry on the couch and scrolled casually through her phone between shirts, Daniel spoke with a quiet gentleness she hadn't heard from him in a long time. Daniel didn't want drama. He didn't want chaos. One evening, while she folded laundry on the couch and scrolled casually through her phone between shirts, Daniel spoke with a quiet gentleness she hadn't heard from him in a long time. Lily blinked. surprised. Then something softened in her expression, relief. Maybe. Hope. A hint of guilt. She smiled carefully and said, "Yeah, I'd like that." He booked their favorite restaurant, the little French place where they once celebrated her 32nd birthday. The place they used to visit back when money was tight and every special occasion felt earned. It was a place full of memories. Laughter. Shared glances. A place that once belonged to them. Now, it would serve a different purpose. "We've been off lately," he said. "Let's have a date night. Just us. No kids. No phones. Just a little time together. What do you think?" As they drove, Lily kept checking her phone, quick glances. Thumb tapping the screen. Locking it again. Anyone else might have missed it. Daniel didn't. She wasn't nervous about the date. She was nervous about whether Ethan would message her during it. Daniel, meanwhile, left his own phone in the car when they arrived. He didn't need it. His mind was clearer than it had been in months. Inside the restaurant, the soft lighting and quiet music wrapped the room in a warm hush. It felt almost like stepping back into an earlier version of their marriage, one filled with easier days. Smaller problems. Simpler trust. They sat. Ordered. The waiter poured water and left them to talk. Lily tried her best to fill the silence. She talked about the kids' weekend plans. About maybe taking a vacation this summer. About a potential promotion Daniel's boss had hinted at. She laughed in small bursts. The kind of laughter meant to brighten the air. Daniel listened politely. He nodded at the right moments. But he didn't add much, not because he was hiding anything, but because he no longer felt any desire to patch over cracks she had carved into their life. For the first time, Lily seemed to notice the distance. Her smiles grew tighter. Her eyes darted from Daniel to her untouched wine glass, as if searching for the right words to close the space between them. But Daniel wasn't giving her space. He was giving her the truth, and as she rambled about school schedules and weekend chores, Daniel watched her with a quiet clarity. This was their last nice meal. The last peaceful moment before everything she'd tried to hide stepped into the light. For the first time, Lily seemed to notice the distance. Her smiles grew tighter. Her eyes darted from Daniel to her untouched wine glass, as if searching for the right words to close the space between them. They sat. Ordered. The waiter poured water and left them to talk. 6 months, he said quietly. Same transfers. Same days. Same account. He slid the printed statements toward her. Each page marked with clean yellow highlights. You told me these were client reimbursements. They're not. They're rent payments. For the apartment Ethan leases under a shell company. Lily's lips parted. Color drained from her face so quickly, it looked like someone had pulled the life out of her. You're overreacting, Daniel. This isn't what you think. But he was already turning the page. The next set of documents wasn't financial. They were photographs. He laid them out slowly. One by one, Lily entering the downtown apartment building. Her leaving hours later. Timestamps lining up with every client meeting she'd claimed. And then one picture taken from across the street, Lily and Ethan kissing near the entrance. Angled toward a wall, as if trying to hide from the world, her denial snapped instantly into anger. You hired someone to spy on me, she hissed. Daniel. That's insane. He cut her off with a calmness that shook her more than shouting ever could. No. What's insane is telling your husband he's paranoid, while you use his paycheck to fund your affair. The table fell silent. Lily's breath trembled. Her excuses tangled in her throat. She looked around as if hoping the room itself might save her. But the room wasn't finished with her. The soft murmur of diners fell away as the restaurant door opened again. Footsteps approached, slow. Steady. Sure. Lily looked up and froze. A very pregnant woman. Her expression exhausted but resolute. Stopped at their table. Hi. Lily. She said. I'm Rachel. Ethan's wife. I thought we should finally meet. Lily's face twisted in a way Daniel had never seen, shock collapsing into guilt. Guilt hardening into desperation. Her mouth scraped for any explanation that might soften the impact. She tried everything. It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything. I've been confused. Overwhelmed. It was emotional. Not physical. It just happened. I still love you. But Daniel wasn't listening anymore. He wasn't angry. He wasn't wounded. He was simply done. I already spoke to a lawyer, he said evenly. I'm filing for divorce. Lily's eyes widened. Panic, flaring. You'll have shared custody. Daniel continued. But you're moving out. You don't get to blow up our home and still sleep under my roof. She reached across the table, but he was already standing. He placed enough money for the bill beside his water glass. Then he turned to Rachel. If you need anything for the baby, he said gently, email me. No child deserves to pay for their parents' lies. And with that, Daniel Reed walked out calm. Steady. Unbroken, leaving Lily sitting across from the woman whose life she'd helped shatter. Everything Lily had tried to hide. Every lie she'd rehearsed. Every secret she thought she'd buried. Now sat exposed under the warm glow of the place she once called her favorite restaurant. And Daniel didn't look back. The months that followed unfolded quietly, the way real consequences usually do. No dramatic explosions. No screaming matches. No courtroom brawls. Just the steady unraveling of a life built on secrets. Lily moved into a small apartment across town. One she could barely afford, without Daniel's income. Word spread slowly in their friend circle. Carried in whispers at school, events, and neighborhood gatherings. People didn't ask Daniel for details. They didn't need to. The empty space on his left side at every function told enough of the story. Daniel and Lily shared custody. But the interactions between them became clean. Minimal. Strictly about the kids. Pickups. Drop-offs. Calendars. Nothing more. He didn't punish her. He simply no longer gave her access to the parts of him she had abused. Ethan's fall was harsher. His reputation in the local creative community collapsed almost overnight. Clients canceled shoots. Vendors stopped referring work. The photographer who once charmed every room now had trouble booking a single wedding. Rachel filed for separation before the baby arrived and focused on building a stable home on her own. She wasn't angry anymore, just determined. As for Lily, the damage followed her everywhere. Her brand, the wholesome family consultant who sold picture-perfect living, crumbled the moment her story leaked. Clients dropped her. Opportunities vanished. She tried to rebrand. To pivot. To outrun the stain. But betrayal has a way of sticking to a person long after the moment has passed. Daniel, on the other hand, grew steadier, lighter, freed from the fog of suspicion and confusion. He performed better at work than he had in years. His colleagues noticed. Even his boss pulled him aside to compliment his focus. At home, Daniel settled into a new rhythm with the kids. He cooked more, laughed more, listened more. And through it all, he never spoke badly about Lily, not once. He refused to let her choices define how his children saw their mother. That was his last gift to the woman he used to love. Life didn't go back to what it was. It became something quieter. Smaller. But honest. Daniel lived in a modest house, now warm. Peaceful. Filled with the soft chaos of homework on the kitchen table and the dog dozing by the back door. The kind of home built on truth. Not performance. One afternoon, he received a photo from Rachel, her newborn daughter swaddled in a pale blanket. Eyes barely open. Her message was simple. Thank you for telling me the truth when everyone else lied. Daniel stared at the photo for a long time before replying. Not with sadness, just with understanding. In the end, he reflected, it wasn't about punishing her. It was about protecting myself and my kids from a life built on lies. I didn't lose my family that day in the restaurant. I lost my illusion. The family I have now is real. Then, for the men listening, the ones who felt that same quiet doubt gnawing at their ribs, his message was steady and grounded. If you feel something is wrong, don't scream. Don't beg. Get the facts. Protect your kids. Protect your sanity. The right woman won't need you to go blind to stay with her. And with a final, gentle reminder, if this story hit a little too close to home, you're not alone. Take care of yourself, brother. And if you want more stories like this, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, share your story.